What happens when a quiet evening turns into a moment you can't take back? He thought she was teasing, until she locked the door and whispered, "Don't pretend you don't want me here." She was older, confident, and everything he shouldn't want, but everything he couldn't resist. Their connection wasn't about age, it was about timing, truth, and the kind of tension that changes everything. In a world that would never understand them, they had one choice: to walk away or to finally stop pretending. I thought she was joking. Until she locked the door. She said, "Don't pretend you don't want me here." And I remember how quiet the room went, like even the air had stopped listening. I'd been standing by the window, trying to act like her nearness wasn't undoing me inch by inch. She stood behind me, close enough that her perfume, faint, clean, something like jasmine after rain, brushed against the back of my neck. It wasn't the words she said that caught me. It was the certainty in her voice. Like she already knew the answer, and just wanted to hear me say it out loud. She was older, sure, mid-40s, maybe a few strands of silver hidden in the dark wave of her hair. But the years hadn't dulled her, they'd defined her. Every movement was measured, deliberate. She didn't chase silence, she owned it. And there I was, pretending to look calm, when my pulse betrayed me in the hollow of my throat. Her fingers grazed the edge of the desk between us. "You're quiet tonight," she said softly. I turned, meeting her eyes, gray, clear, unflinching. "I'm trying not to say the wrong thing." She smiled, the kind of smile that doesn't comfort you, it dares you. "There's no wrong thing," she said. "Not anymore." I should have left right then. The door was still open behind her, the cool evening wind tugging faintly at the curtain. But my hand didn't move. I watched her instead, the way she leaned back against the desk, arms folded, as though every inch of this moment was something she'd already chosen. I said, "You always do this." "Do what?" "Make it sound like it's simple." Her laughter was quiet, the kind that lingers after it ends. "It is simple. You just make it difficult." And then she crossed the small space between us. No dramatic music. No lightning bolt. Just the soft sound of her bare feet against the floor and the faint clink of her bracelet. When her hand brushed mine, it wasn't accidental. It stayed there, still, certain, unbearably warm. "You're shaking," she whispered. I was. But not from fear. "Because if I touch you," I said, "I don't think I'll stop." Her lips parted just slightly, not a smile, not surprise. Something between permission and recognition. The air between us thickened, heavy with all the words we'd avoided for months. She tilted her head, eyes never leaving mine. "Then stop pretending." For a moment, I couldn't breathe. Her voice was low, steady, but underneath it, I heard something fragile, like she didn't trust her own courage. So I said it, barely more than a whisper. "I stopped pretending a long time ago." That was when everything changed. The silence became alive, louder than sound. She turned, walked to the door, and without looking back, she locked it. The click of that lock, small, final, electric, seemed to echo longer than it should have. I don't know what she was thinking in that second. Maybe either of us did. I remember her hand on the doorknob, the faint tremor in her fingers. And then she turned toward me, her expression unreadable, a mix of challenge and hesitation, hunger and fear. She took a breath, like she was about to say something, but before she could, someone knocked. Once. Sharp. Close. She froze. I did too. The sound hung between us, splitting the air we'd just filled. Her eyes met mine again, and this time, there was something raw in them, a question neither of us dared answer yet. The knock faded. Neither of us moved. For a long, breathless moment, it felt like the world was waiting to see what we'd do next. When she finally spoke, her voice had changed, steadier, softer. "You should sit down," she murmured, turning away. She unlatched the door but didn't open it, as if leaving it unlocked was a kind of compromise. I sat. She didn't. She poured herself a glass of wine instead, her back to me. The red shimmered under the lamplight, Her reflection fractured across the windowpane. I'm not supposed to be here, I said quietly. She looked over her shoulder. You mean tonight? I mean in your life. A faint smile touched her lips, not amusement, but understanding. You think too much. That was the problem. I thought about her all the time. I'd met her when I was still trying to figure out who I was. She'd been my professor then. Sharp, composed, and untouchable. Even after graduation, even after months of silence, I couldn't shake her voice from my head. It was like she'd taken up permanent residence somewhere between admiration and something far more dangerous. She placed the glass down and turned toward me. You're not a student anymore, she said. You're allowed to visit an old friend. Her tone made the word friend sound like both a boundary and a confession. I don't visit friends like this, I said. She exhaled through her nose, half a laugh, half surrender. Neither do I. There was something tired in her smile. A trace of old heartbreak she tried to hide behind wit. I'd heard whispers once, that she'd been married briefly. That it ended quietly, the way things often do when people give up long before they say so out loud. Maybe that's why her eyes sometimes looked distant even when she was standing right in front of me, like part of her was still elsewhere, still holding something she refused to name. She came closer again, slowly this time, cautious. Her fingers brushed my shoulder as she reached for the book behind me, but she didn't move her hand away. Do you ever regret things you didn't do? I asked. Her gaze lifted to mine. For a second, she didn't breathe. Every day, she said finally. The words landed heavier than either of us expected. I watched her trace the rim of the wineglass, her nails faintly tapping against the glass like a clock counting something down. I wanted to reach out, not to claim her, just to steady her. But I didn't. I was afraid that one small act of tenderness might undo everything she'd worked so hard to protect. When she finally did move, it wasn't away. She leaned forward, her voice low, close enough that her breath warmed the side of my neck. You should go, she whispered. But she didn't step back. And neither did I. We stayed there, not touching, not speaking, caught in the fragile space between what was right and what we wanted. The sound of her heartbeat filled the quiet more than any word could. The next morning, the light in her apartment looked different, too clean, too revealing. She was making coffee, humming something quiet and old, while I sat at her kitchen table pretending to check messages I didn't care about. Every move she made was careful now. No more lingering glances. No teasing lines. But the space between us felt tighter than ever, like silence itself had learned how to breathe. She slid a mug across to me. You didn't have to stay. You didn't tell me to leave. Her eyes flicked up. That pause, just long enough to say everything we wouldn't. Before she could answer, her phone buzzed on the counter. She reached for it, but froze when she saw the name flashing on the screen. Who is it? I asked. She hesitated. A colleague. Then quieter. He's old history. The phone buzzed again. She let it ring out. But her fingers trembled as she set it down. Something in the air shifted, a reminder that she had a life that didn't include me, a world I wasn't supposed to enter. I stood, coming closer. You don't have to explain. I do, she said sharply, then softer, almost apologetic. People talk. They always do. She turned her back, busying herself with the coffee pot, but her hands wouldn't stay still. I reached out, touched her wrist just to stop the shaking. She froze. Don't, she whispered. I wasn't going to. But I didn't finish. Because she turned, and for one impossible second, we were face to face. So close that her breath grazed my chin, her perfume pulling every thought out of me. I can't, she murmured. You're too what? Her lips parted, but no sound came. Before either of us could move, the front door rattled. Elaine? A voice called. Male, older. You home? She went pale. Her eyes darted toward the door, then back to me. My neighbor. He has a key for deliveries. We froze, listening, The key scraped in the lock. She grabbed my hand, pulled me toward the hallway. We slipped into the study, barely shutting the door before the front one opened. "Elaine?" the man called again. Footsteps. The faint clatter of mail on the table. We stood pressed together in the narrow dark of the study, her back against the wall, my hand still caught in hers. The sound of the man moving around in the next room made her grip tighten. Her heartbeat was right there, against my chest, fast and trembling. She looked up at me, eyes wide, breath uneven. "Stay still," she mouthed. But I couldn't look away. Her hair brushed my cheek. My fingers slipped barely against the fabric at her waist. The door clicked shut again. Silence returned. Neither of us moved. Then she exhaled, a sound somewhere between relief and surrender. Her hand stayed on mine longer than it needed to. Too long. And in that stolen quiet, with danger just a step behind us, I realized something neither of us dared say. We were already too far gone. It had been 3 days since the incident in the study. 3 days of pretending nothing had changed, that her messages were just polite check-ins, that my replies weren't typed and deleted a dozen times before sending. But everything had changed. When she finally asked me to come by again, the message was short. "We need to talk." No greeting. No signature. Just that. I told myself I wouldn't go. I told myself it was better this way, to leave things unfinished, safer. But by sunset, I was already outside her building, pulse hammering in my throat. She opened the door before I knocked. Her eyes were tired, rimmed faintly in red, like she hadn't slept. "You shouldn't be here," she said. "You're the one who asked me." "I know," she whispered. "That's the problem." She stepped aside. The apartment felt different, curtains drawn, air heavy with the scent of coffee and something faintly sweet, maybe wine. The table was still cluttered from last time, papers scattered like thoughts she couldn't organize. "I keep thinking about that night," I said. Her back stiffened. "Don't." "I can't stop." Her shoulders sank. She turned, meeting my eyes for the first time. "You think this is some unfinished story we can rewrite? You don't understand what this costs me." "I'm not asking for anything," I said quietly. Then why do you keep showing up?" The words hit harder than she meant them to. For a long moment, the only sound was the soft hum of the fridge, and the storm building outside the window. "Because you look at me like I'm someone worth remembering," I said finally. "And no one's done that in a long time." Her breath caught, a tiny, unsteady sound. Then she was in front of me, close enough that I could see the faint tremor in her jaw. "You don't know what you're doing," she said. "Then tell me." She stepped closer. The space between us vanished. Her hand lifted, hesitated, then brushed my hair back from my forehead, her fingers trembling as if she wasn't sure what she was allowed to touch. "I'm old enough to know better," she whispered. "Then why aren't you stopping me?" Lightning flashed through the window, white and silent, lighting her face for one fleeting second. Her lips parted, her eyes soft and conflicted. Her hand slid down, resting on my chest. I could feel her pulse under her skin, quick and uneven. "This isn't supposed to happen," she said. "But it already is." She leaned in, not quite touching, her breath warm against my mouth. Outside, thunder rolled, low and distant. Then, just as she whispered my name, a sound like confession and surrender all at once, the lights flickered. A voice called from the hallway outside her apartment. "Elaine? You in there?" Her hand fell away. Both of us stood frozen, caught between the life we were supposed to protect and the one we were about to destroy. End of Part 4, nearing the climax title. I thought she was joking. Until she locked the door. Part 4, nearing the climax. 3 days had passed since the moment in the study, and every one of them felt stretched thin, like time itself was holding its breath. When her message arrived, "We need to talk," I tried to ignore it. I even typed a dozen different ways to say no before deleting them all. By dusk I was standing outside her door again, pulse restless, rain beginning to stain my sleeves. She opened before I knocked. You shouldn't have come. You asked me to. I know, she said, voice raw. That's the problem. The apartment was dim, the only light coming from a lamp on the floor. The air smelled like coffee gone cold, and the faint spice of her perfume. She moved around the room gathering papers just to have something to do with her hands. I've tried not to think about that night, she said. Have you? I asked. She froze, shoulders rigid. You make it sound easy for you. It's not. She turned. You don't understand what this costs me. I'm not asking you for anything, I said. Then why can't you stay away? I didn't have an answer. Silence hung between us until she sighed and looked down, a strand of hair falling loose. I reached out, without thinking, and brushed it back. My fingers grazed her cheek. She didn't move. Her breath hitched, eyes closing for the smallest second. You shouldn't do that. But I already did. The storm outside pressed against the windows, low thunder vibrating through the floorboards. She looked up, and whatever guard she'd been holding slipped. The distance we'd been pretending to keep vanished. Don't, she said again, but softer this time. You want me to stop? She shook her head, almost imperceptibly. I want to remember how this feels. Her hand found my sleeve. She leaned closer until her forehead almost touched mine. I could feel the tremor in her breath, the warmth of her body through the thin space left between us. This isn't supposed to happen, she whispered. Then tell me to go. She didn't. Instead, she let her fingers trace the edge of my collar, down to the rhythm of my heartbeat. Every second stretched into forever. I'm scared, she said. So am I. The words hung there, trembling, and for a heartbeat we both forgot the rest of the world existed. I tilted my head slightly. Her lips parted, a breath away from mine, then the hallway outside creaked. Elaine? A voice called, muffled but close. She stiffened. The sound of keys, a knock. I stepped back, barely. Her hand lingered in the air between us, caught halfway in surrender. Thunder cracked, loud and final. She looked at me, eyes wide, pulse visible at her throat. Don't say anything, she breathed. And though either of us moved, the distance between what we were and what we wanted felt suddenly paper-thin. The knock on the door didn't come again. Whoever it was must have left. But the silence afterward didn't feel like relief. It felt like a warning. Elaine exhaled shakily, pressing her palm to her forehead. He wasn't supposed to know where I live, she muttered. I frowned. Who? My colleague. The one from the messages, she said, her voice low. We worked together for years. He's been asking questions about you. About me? Her eyes met mine, reluctant and haunted. He saw us. That night you waited outside my class. He asked if we were involved. I stepped back, a dull throb of adrenaline hitting. And what did you say? I said no, she whispered. Because I thought that would protect you. The words landed heavy between us, a kind of lie that felt almost tender. I don't need protecting, I said. Her laugh came sharp, hollow. You're 24. You still believe things have consequences only when you choose them. I chose this, I said. Her eyes softened, but her hands were trembling. She wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly small in the half-light. You think it's that simple? You think I can just… She stopped. Her throat worked, but no words followed. I could see the fear crawling up through her composure, the fear of being seen, of being judged, of losing everything she'd built. When she finally spoke again, her voice broke in places. You weren't supposed to mean anything. I thought it would fade after you graduated. I told myself I imagined it. And you didn't? She shook her head. Every time you looked at me like that, I forgot how to be sensible. I took a small step closer. Then stopped pretending now. Her breath caught. She turned as if to move away, but I reached out and caught her wrist, not roughly, just enough to stop her. Her skin was cool under my touch, her pulse quick and uneven. Let me go, she said. I did. But she didn't move. Her eyes glistened, not with tears, but with something rawer, the kind of honesty that doesn't need to be spoken. You don't know what it's like to live with everyone watching. To have your mistakes follow you home. Then let me be the one who doesn't watch, I said quietly. Let me just be here. For a moment, neither of us breathed. The storm outside had moved closer again, rain beginning to tap against the window, faint but insistent. She turned toward me, eyes glinting in the dim light. If anyone finds out, I lose everything, she said. And if we stop now? I asked. Her answer came in a whisper, almost broken. Then I lose you. The words undid us both. She stepped closer, slow, deliberate, until we were inches apart, sharing the same uneven breath. My hand brushed against hers. She didn't pull away. Whatever happens next, she said, we don't get to go back. Outside, thunder rolled again, a warning, or maybe permission. The storm had settled into a steady rhythm, rain tracing slow rivers down the glass. The apartment lights flickered, dimming the space until only the glow from a single lamp held them together. Elaine stood by the window, arms crossed, face half-lit, half-shadow. She didn't speak for a long time. When she finally did, it was so soft I almost didn't catch it. Say it, she whispered. Say what you want. The question wasn't new, she'd asked it before, in different ways, through silences and almost touches. But this time, there was no retreat left. I moved closer. My heart thudded so hard it felt like sound. You already know. Say it anyway. I want you. Her breath hitched, a sound of surrender and fear in one. You don't understand what that means. I do. She shook her head, stepping back until her shoulders met the windowpane. No, you don't. Wanting is easy. Living with it isn't. Lightning flashed again, briefly revealing the glassy sheen in her eyes. I reached up, brushing a strand of hair from her face. She didn't flinch this time. Her skin was warm beneath my fingertips, and the quiet between us turned thick, not empty, but full of everything we'd refused to name. You're shaking, I said. So are you. Her laugh was barely audible, trembling. For a heartbeat, it felt like the world stopped. Rain outside, the faint hum of the city below, the static charge between our breaths, all of it blurred into one suspended instant. Tell me to stop, I said. She didn't. Instead, she reached up, fingers brushing my jaw, then resting there, not to pull me closer, but to feel that I was real. God help me, she whispered. I don't want you to stop. And in that moment, the distance we'd built, the age, the rules, the consequences, all dissolved. We weren't teacher and student, older and younger, right and wrong. We were just two people who'd run out of ways to pretend. Her forehead came to rest against mine. I could feel her breath tremble against my lips, taste the warmth of every word she didn't say. This changes everything, she murmured. I know. If we do this, then it's real, I finished. Silence swallowed the room again, but it wasn't the careful silence we'd used before. It was a raw, honest kind, the sound of two people standing at the edge of something irreversible. Her hand slid down, finding mine. Fingers interlocked. The decision was already made in that small, quiet gesture. She closed her eyes. Then don't leave when it hurts. I won't. The rain deepened outside, washing against the window in restless waves. We didn't move any closer, we didn't need to. Everything that mattered had already happened in the space between us. For the first time, there was no pretending left to protect us. Only the truth, fragile, dangerous, and finally shared. The rain finally stopped by morning. The city outside her window looked washed clean, streets shining, rooftops glistening, the kind of quiet that only comes after a long storm. Elaine sat on the couch, her knees pulled close, a blanket wrapped loosely around her shoulders. I made coffee, though neither of us had slept. The air between us felt different now, softer, stripped of the tension that used to fill every silence. When I handed her the cup, our fingers brushed. This time, she didn't pull away. I thought you'd be gone by now, she said, her voice rough with exhaustion. I said I wouldn't leave. She smiled faintly, a tired but real smile. You always say things like that, like you mean them. I do mean them, I said. She looked at me for a long time, studying something in my face that maybe she hadn't dared to look for before. You're too young to understand what happens after moments like this, she murmured. Maybe, I said. But I know what it's like to not regret them. The words settled between us, simple and true. She took a slow sip of coffee, staring out the window. The light caught in her hair, tracing faint lines of silver I hadn't noticed before. She looked peaceful, even with all the mess between us still unsolved. Do you think people will ever understand? I asked quietly. She laughed softly, the sound barely there. People don't even understand themselves. Why should we expect them to understand us? I moved closer, sitting beside her. The couch dipped under our combined weight. Our knees brushed, a small, grounding contact. She didn't shift away. Her hand rested on her lap, palm up, fingers barely open, an invitation without words. I slid mine into hers slowly. She exhaled, eyes fluttering shut for a moment, as if that simple touch meant more than anything else could. When she spoke again, her tone was quieter, steadier. You know this won't be easy. I know, I said. But it's real. Her gaze met mine, searching, vulnerable, warm. Then we'll start there, she said. I leaned closer, not for a kiss, not this time. Just to rest my forehead against hers. She breathed in deeply, her hand tightening around mine. The silence was different now, not charged, not heavy. Just honest. Outside, the clouds began to thin, sunlight spilling across the window. The world was still complicated, still waiting, but for the first time either of us was running from it. Elaine smiled, her thumb brushing the back of my hand. You know, she said softly. I thought you were joking the first time you said you wanted me here. I smiled back. You locked the door. I didn't think you were joking. We both laughed then, quiet, tired, human. No promises, no declarations. Just a shared warmth that said more than words could. And for once, that was enough.